And now it's time for the Insiders with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and Michael Best Strategies.
Hi, I'm Chuck Chvala, former Senate Majority Leader.
And I'm Scott Jensen, former Assembly Speaker.
Well, Scott, we've got a big governor's race coming up here. This is going to be important for the state of Wisconsin, probably for the next generation and beyond. What's your take on where we're headed?
Well, obviously, Wisconsin's a 50-50 state. We've had the history of these really close elections. All the polling shows this is likely to be a very close election here for governor, and an extraordinary amount of money is going to get spent by both sides on it. I think the key will be in how the candidates frame their messages and whether or not they can win over some of the suburban women here in the metro Milwaukee area. I think particularly college-educated suburban women, I think that's the audience that Tony Evers is playing for when he's out there talking about issues like education and healthcare. And I think that's the audience that Tim Michels is going to turn his attention to as well. He did better in southeastern Wisconsin in the primary than many people expected. I think he's going to try to focus on that crowd in the general election. And his framing in this race is going to be that he's the person who gets things done. He's the accomplished businessman. Tony Evers is a lifelong bureaucrat with a record of failure and a record of incompetence. I think that's going to be the overall message of the campaign. And then in an effort to appeal to suburban women, I think he showed a card during one of the debates that I think was fascinating to people, is that, he pointed out that Michels Corporation is a very generous employer. They have very generous benefits for people, including very generous paid family leave. And that's an unusual thing for a Republican to run on, but he said he'd like to make that policy here in the state of Wisconsin. Now, that is not out of the traditional conservative playbook of a Republican candidate for statewide office. But if Michels plays that card, I think that begins to open an opportunity to talk to those suburban women and let them know, hey, I've been fair with my employees and I intend to be fair with people all over the state. And I think that may get him the edge he needs to win this in the general election.
My God, I don't think Southwest Wisconsin women who are many of them college educated are dumb enough to fall for that, because they know that bill will never reach his desk. The Republicans have had control of the legislature for more than 10 years now, Scott, and they haven't put anything like that on the governor's desk. If they're dumb enough to fall for that, then I guess they deserve what they get, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
The politics has changed, Chuck.
But I'll tell you what the governor will be saying. I'll tell you what the governor Evers will say. He's going to be saying, if I'm in place, I'm going to support the attorney general and make sure that DAs do not prosecute people who seek an abortion. And for women who are going to say, my daughter could be raped and be required under Governor Michels to take that pregnancy to term, he's going to have that hung around his neck, and for good reason, because the rights of people have changed. Not some promise that will never be evidenced, but actually the reality that your child could be raped and have to carry a pregnancy to term. That is not going to play well. And I don't know how Republicans thought that putting a man out there who's already said no rape or incest is better than a woman who comes from the suburbs and at least has some connection to these women. And the idea that a billionaire who really lives in Connecticut or has his home in Connecticut, a $17 million house in Connecticut, I think the little house next to it is bigger than the house that most people live in, the pool house or something. Oh my God, I don't think that that's going to work. And this thing about Governor Evers, we have the lowest unemployment we've ever had in this state, the highest employment we've ever had in this state. The budget the budget for the state, we have the biggest surplus ever. That incompetence thing doesn't work because Tony Evers comes across as what he exactly is, which is just a nice guy who's trying to do a good job and navigate between all these various extremes that are out there. Tony comes across as the one guy that you'd like to have in charge in a time of trouble. And that's exactly what this is. And you know what suburban women want? They want security. And Tony Evers, his face speaks security. I'll tell you what, the U.S. Senate race will be close. I think Tony Evers could well blow it out of the water, and he will carry Josh Kaul along with him. And if he's lucky, that will also help in the U.S. Senate race as well. I think Michels is not the candidate to win. He's lost twice in previous elections. And I think there's something about his delivery or whatever that just doesn't work.
You know, Chuck, you keep talking about how abortion is going to influence this election and all the impact it's going to have on it, but you've missed the impact that abortion and the Supreme Court decision have had on Republican politics. And what I'm pointing out is that right to life groups, pro-life groups all over this state are now pushing on Republican candidates to say, we have a responsibility to do things like paid family leave. We have a responsibility to extend Medicare, Medicaid benefits for maternal health care. That has changed the dynamic within Republican politics. And you're going to see, I think, not only Tim Michaels lead on a number of those issues, but you're going to see Republican legislative leaders say that they intend to welcome and help these women who will not have an access to an abortion and will be birthing these children. I think that's what you're going to see. It's going to be a very different perspective going forward. And I don't think people are catching the change in Republican politics that's occurring right now.
Here's the problem with you guys now jumping into this new area. So if I'm Governor Evers responding to that in the debate, here's what my response is going to be. I'm going to say, really? So you're saying you held hostage for every other woman in this state who didn't have an abortion. You held hostage their right to family and medical leave so that you could get this abortion thing through? How dare you? How dare you mess with my rights? And by the way, women are hot right now. People do not understand unless you talk to a lot of them and you talk to them in depth. They are hot right now. And don't think that my heat in any way matches the measure of their heat. But let me also tell you this. With regard to Republican politicians, they have credibility on issues like tax cuts. They have no credibility when it comes to people on abortion. They have no credibility on providing service to families with children. They have no credibility. And Scott, you know as well as I do, there are some issues like healthcare and education that play well for Dems. There are other issues like taxes and the economy that play well for Republicans. And to the extent the Republicans have a chance this year, it's because of the economy. I'll give you that. But I'll tell you what, when you've got Governor Evers with the lowest unemployment, the highest employment, the biggest budget surplus, and a guy who looks like Mr. Steady, I think Mr. Michaels is going to have a hard time.
Well, I think Michaels inspires confidence. I mean, he's an accomplished business executive. We'll see. I do think that this will be a roller coaster race all the way home. I don't think it's a blowout by either candidate. So we'll be talking about it in future episodes, I'm sure.
Sounds good. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to The Insiders with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and Michael Best Strategies.